Jesus.
That is an intro. Hello and welcome to In12d, formerly Open Mic UK. So welcome everyone. We're glad to be here with you with under a new name, new umbrella, new designs, new everything. So we're gonna talk about that and much more. And we're gonna start with the introduction. So, welcome to In12d, Beyond Ordinary Conscious Evolution. Your hosts are Kathy Pratt, Suzi von, and Ramzi. Go ahead.
I'm Kathy. I'm a mystic artist, and I work in the liminal.
And I'm Suzi, and I'm over here in Ireland. I'm in West Cork, and as a Vedic educator, I love to explore higher states of consciousness and a little time travel on the side.
And I'm Ramzi. I'm your holistic, funny alchemist. I'm here. See, I make people laugh. This is our first In12d event, so it's going to be a bit different than what we had before. But let's just describe a bit what it is about. Kathy?
We talk about exploring our unseen realms and our intuition, which we explored before, different energy, higher states of consciousness where all of that meets in the middle, unlocking the mysteries beyond ordinary perception. Doesn't that sound like fun?
And we love to connect with the ordinary people who are like ourselves, living extraordinary lives.
See, that's the best part of it all. It's ordinary people living extraordinary life. We're here to pass on our experiences. We have actually a whole list of guests that would like to have on our show. One of them will announce during the call for next week. And also, we are moving from a bi-weekly podcast into a weekly podcast. So every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, and 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I think I got it right.
You did.
So please stay tuned. On a weekly basis, we are going to be here, either the three of us or at least one of us at any point in time. So we're ready for the show. Let's start. See, and we thought we'll start it with the discussion of how did this evolve, what brought us here, and why did we change that. See, we're still in the title of the podcast, Mind, Magic, and Alchemy. See, mind plays a trick on us, and it's our greatest tool, and also a tool that pulls us back from where we want to go. Open mic started almost 3 years ago. It was an open mic for me. I kind of resisted it, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to show myself up, be out there in the public face. But then I forced myself, got over it, started open mic. 3 years later, we are where we are. I got beautiful host, co-host, and also wonderful guests along the way. And for the past year and a half, we turned it into an open mic UK for the three of us, the three hosts that you have over here. And with the knowledge that we have, the three of us, we brought in a colorful tapestry of information for you. If anybody wants to jump in and talk a bit about the evolution and the resistance that you faced with in the past year and a half, joining open mic and transforming into In12d.
Sure. For me, I felt like by the end of last year, and as we entered the start of this year, we'd sort of outgrown spirit cafes, because I suppose that was another aspect of it. We'd met up at Spirit Cafe, not having a clue what that was going to be, really allowing ourselves to be guided on that one. And what seemed to emerge from Spirit Cafe was the open mic. It became something that we definitely look forward to, along with the Media Mystic sessions, every once a month. And so you can start a journey with something, and you can think it's going to be A, B, C, D or whatever. But then you come to the end of that year and you realize, oh, it wasn't quite what I expected. It was, and it was really interesting. There were some really interesting kind of turns of events there. And I think part of us were thinking we just, rinse and repeat for this year, but that never felt right with me. Honestly, I was feeling this kind of resistance. I felt like it was kind of old, kind of we'd done it, and that there was something that was trying to get our attention, but we hadn't quite tuned into it. And I think there were a lot of moving parts with, you know, all of us in our own personal lives as well. Like, so it took a bit of time for us to kind of come together. And that's what I love about evolving. We're constantly evolving. And when you're moving from one state to another, in my experience, then it's not always plain sailing. There's resistance. There's the part of you that is like protesting a little bit, doesn't want the change, perhaps. You can really feel your nose coming up, but it doesn't mean you're coming in with suggestions for, what it could be. So I think with evolution, you have to kind of live through it for a little bit. And ultimately, what you were saying when we were chatting earlier, Ramzi, starting to trust and let it like unfold a little bit. And it really is still in that kind of process of evolving and unfolding. But it feels now like, to me anyway, that we're starting to get into like a new groove. That's what it feels like.
Mhm. And we didn't know where we were going to go from Spirit Cafe, so we sort of leaned into the things that we know how to do. So the three of us, we started coming up with names, and we did our old trick, blind vision, and just kept going and going until we hit upon In12d, which I really liked because it seems like we could go anywhere in there. It's I'm not sure what it means. I kind of have ideas, and maybe it's something that you realize, when you're dreaming at night or in a meditation, what 12d means. But it gives us room to grow and evolve, right?
You mentioned blind vision. Could you just elaborate a bit on that? What's blind vision?
So Suzi and Ramzi did this with a group of ours. Is it, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago now. So blind vision is where when we did it about the names, we each wrote down on a piece of paper the idea for a name for our group, folded up, and we gave them numbers. And then all three of us would, so we wouldn't say the name. Nobody knew the name. We would, say, all right, we're going to tune into number 1 now. And we all tune in and give it a number or a description, describing how it made us feel, if it gave us a strong reaction, if we felt nothing. Sometimes visuals come with it. Both of you saw an arrow when we talked about one of the names, so we just sort of keep track, and then the math steps in, and we literally went down the list, and everybody said, okay, number 1, I got a 4, Suzi got a 6, Ramzi got a 6, add that up, see which one was the highest. And we didn't end up settling on one of those because none of us were wild about it. So there again, we were following instincts until we did land on something. But that's blind vision. I just love doing that. It's so fun. Yeah.
The good thing with the blind vision is when I lead that I've done that with bigger groups as well. And what I normally do is when you come up with like the first piece of paper, it could be like the first thing that comes in your head. Then the second piece might be, you know, where your logic might come into it. You know, logically, this sounds like a good name. You know, the next one might be coming from your intellect. Then the next one might come from your heart. Another one might start coming from your gut. And then what I try to do with groups is to go beyond the confines of those, you know, the limitations that are from our conditioning to something more expanded. And like, you know, what would it be if you know, if you knew there was never going to be anything that's going to stop it, like, you know, if it's all inclusive, if it's cosmic, if it's beyond. And so you keep kind of gently pushing the group to expand the concepts, the ideas, the names, whatever it is you're looking to kind of tune into. And that's whether you go for the name that gets the high score or not, that's not really the main point of it, is to try to get beyond the conditioning. And I think that's how it really helped us when we did it with the name, because we were just too contained with what it was, and never were the three of us satisfied with it, like, which made it become very arduous. And but eventually, when we came up with the words In12d, it's without limitations, you know. And for me, 12d is, you know, obviously the 12 dimensions and living a multidimensional life on all levels, and it's really beyond the confines of, you know, your physical constraints, your mental ones, your conditioning. So I feel like maybe that's where this podcast is going to go. We'll go into, like, you know, this kind of liminal space, or the more alchemical kind of space, or, you know, or multidimensionality. Like, try to get us into the space of that evolution with the conversations, with, you know, throwing around ideas, practices.
Before I continue, I just want to say hello to Michelle Marie. Hola, Ramzi, Suzi, Kathy. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you for being with us, Michelle. Michelle and I had an event yesterday, an astrological event. 2 hours and a half. It was awesome. It was a play. Loved it. Going back to Kathy. Sorry, to Suzi. The 12D are 12-dimensional levels that through meditation we can go through, and what do you call it? At different stages of meditation. Is that correct? Kind of thing.
It's a lot more than that, to be honest. I think it's with meditation, when we talk about higher states, we're looking at, you know, we go to about 7, and then beyond that, it's just so much more expansive, and it's not for everybody. But what it demonstrates for me is that we are living in such a small little portion of our potential, like, where, you know, we can get really caught down here in the 3D. And, you know, so people are talking about 5D living now, you know, and that sort of ascension process and things like that. But I was just on a call prior to this, and we were talking about liminal embodiment, you know. So living, what does it feel like to live in 5D? What does it feel like to live in an expanded state, not just in a practice, but really in your day-to-day? And what we were talking about there was really trusting your intuition, really listening to your body, really being able to kind of trust not knowing and doing it anyway, you know, little things like that. And I think even though you're expanding and evolving, like with the 12D, it's kind of beyond the beyond, you know. It's a lot more. You know, I could get into all the theory of that, but I don't think that's what we're about. We're not here as experts, or, you know, from a professional sense, but we're explorers. I would always see myself as a sort of a conscious explorer, you know, to consciously evolve, not just evolve haphazard, but really do it consciously. Like get out of the ordinary, get out of your limitations, you know?
See what the good point is that you said trusting, even you're not knowing, trusting, and I like how open mic started from getting over my hump and being out there in front of people to allowing the process to tailor it along the way. And that's where I met also Michelle, that we had the call yesterday with the show with her yesterday, and then getting to meet you 2 years ago, where at a school in the Netherlands, and I was doing it at 3 o'clock in the morning, and to be there at time, and then getting to meet somebody else that brought us to Kathy. So just allow the process to take you places rather than having a rigid thing. And also, sorry, I'm going on a tangent. You can stop me. But also with the different dimensions that we live in, when we do, and that's my feeling, and you can elaborate or tell me otherwise. When we're in a call like this, when we're focused on the call and giving information to the audience, we move into a different dimension. And I always feel that an hour passes in 2 minutes, not because it was fun. It's just because we weren't in a space where rigid by time and we have everything set up. We allowed the information to flow and pass it on. So it's basically the universe working through us, to allowing the universe to work through us in order to come up with a what do you call it? The podcast.
Yeah. You know, I don't think we're the doers a lot of the time. We try, like we're being put to work. Of course, we have to do, you know, you have to make things happen. You have to click the buttons and all of that. But ultimately, like when you really surrender to give the message, like you were doing yesterday, like you said, you didn't recognize the words or the voice practically that was flowing through you when you were, you know, coming up with the reading for the listeners that you had yesterday.
Yeah, it just happens. It just flows through. Absolutely. And like I said, yesterday was 2.5 hours. They passed like this. Yeah. Thanks, Michelle. Michelle said it was great reconnecting again, and the audience missed me. I know it's been over a year now. We haven't done something like that. So back to the mind magic and alchemy. Kathy, what's your input on that? The discussion we said from 12D and how allowing and trusting the universe.
Well, you were making me think of earlier today. It's for me, it's kind of like having living in two places at once. So I'm aware that I'm on a podcast and I'm, you know, following the thread of that, and at the same time, Andy from Plantily popped into my head, and I stepped out of the last session, and he was a guest that we had last year, and so I haven't been in contact with that group, but while I'm sitting here paying attention to this conversation, Andy pops into my mind, and so what I know, because I'm paying attention, is now it's time for me to step back into that stream over there and do something else. So I for me, it's the same as when we practice our mediumship. You know, you're following your breath, you're, you know, maybe visualizing something in your mind, but then you're also listening to other things that might come in, metaphors, voices, colors. It's our creativity, it's your imagination, it's your it's our right brain that I try really hard to use as much as I can, because then I can be paying more attention to this mystical realm.
I want you pulled you said a couple of interesting things, and one of them is creativity.
Mm.
How does well, no, I'll reframe that. So, in your artwork, and you do a lot of artwork, where does it come from? And what do you do in order to bring it in? Do you force it out? Or what is the process that you do in order to get things out?
When I do the more mystical art, that is completely from another place. It's not me thinking up ideas. So one of the last things that I did was come up with a visual for an archetype for a group. So it's an idea. We have an idea of an archetype to represent divination, what it means to be an oracle. So you can think about that, and you can certainly come up with images, tarot cards or runes, or you could have a brain, and you could do a million different things. But what I do is I use writing a lot, and I start asking questions, and because it's become a habit for me. When I have my certain notebook, when I start writing and I start asking questions, here's what I need to do. Send me some images. Sometimes I have guides that I talk with, help me. I have a creativity team that I literally ask for help in the best way so that I can convey an idea that's going to speak more than what my words can say. So usually, as I'm writing, then something just literally, like, I can see it right there, 100%. And because this last one was hard, the hard part wasn't the conceptualizing it, but it was figuring out, now how do I make that with actual paint on paper? And because I've been painting my whole life, that I don't get too bent out of shape on that piece, but that's the hardest part. Because things can't move. It has to be static. It is flat. It's on paper. But that's my ideas come right out of that this liminal morphic realm where we're all connected right now. Yeah, things are flying around, just trying to get our attention, right?
Mm.
Look over here, look at me, do this, pay attention.
What's yours, Ramzi? I'm dying to know what your kind of process is like when you're not live doing readings. How do you maintain your, I suppose, clear connection, or how do you experience it in your downtime, your day to day?
Well, same as Kathy, in a way that I talk to my guides. I do talk to them from time to time. Sometimes I forget, but and then I apologize, and then I continue talking, and then I thank them after. And sometimes I forget to thank them, but I do manage to have an honest relationship, kind of, if you want to call it this way. So where I recognize their presence, and I acknowledge that the help that they gave me, and I pass it and that's how information comes through me, especially when I'm quiet. Most of the time I don't have a lot of chatter in my mind. I used to have more than before. I used to have more in the past, but now I don't. I kind of like worked on trying to quiet the mind as much as possible and not get engaged in things that really are useless. So I was telling Kathy this, and I think I mentioned it to you. I was sitting at home, and all of a sudden I said, "Go to the Bay store and find your stuff to get them on special." And I went there, and they were on special, and I bought what I needed to buy, and I walked out of the store. So, and I get these more often than I even like notice. Whenever I'm in need for something, I know like I need a let's say a t-shirt or something, and I just, okay, I'll go out whenever, because I don't like to be in crowded spaces. I realized that I got a note that says, go to this place and buy it there, and most probably it's on special. And I get in the car, or I walk and I get in and I go to the store. I never question that, because I know what happens all the time, like all the time.
I see that Jonathan in the chat is saying, great practices. He says his wife and himself do yogic practice every day to connect. I can totally relate to that, Jonathan. For me, that's the go-to yoga mat meditation.
Yeah, tell us how it comes to you, Suzi. What's your process?
Yeah, it's just I think it's just knowing yourself, really. Ultimately, it's kind of being able to, like you said, take a quiet moment to tune in. Sometimes I'm busy and I'm not taking a quiet moment, but there's like an impulse or a nudge or an inner sort of a, impulse, let's say, to follow some guidance, and sometimes I don't want to follow it because it makes me uncomfortable or something. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, okay, let me see what I can do here. But for me, the go-to practice is meditation. It really, I see it like it's kind of like, the way you have to empty the trash every day. You have to clean up your computer. You have to defrag your computer. You have to empty the trash. Meditation is that. It's like purification practice. So it's not about it's all happening when you're sitting there with your eyes closed, but there's a refinement is happening. And so, you're not getting caught up in the kind of day-to-day stressors. You're kind of managing them because you're kind of cleaning the trash. You're dusting off every day, so you don't accumulate too much stress in your system. But our breathing, pranayama, is another way that I can really tune in with breath work. I can just sit and do some breathing, and it's almost like an instant connection as well. So there's lots of ways. There's like some of the stuff happens when you least expect it. I was listening to a podcast last week, and the guys were saying that it happens in the shower. So, each to their own. I say whatever works, do it.
Shower theta is the best.
Yeah.
See, Michelle has the same thing. She uses breathwork, meditation, mantras, etc., and so important for our mental, spiritual, and emotional health. Art helps me focus as well. And the funny part, we all talked about. I didn't. I'm sorry, Suzi. I missed. Do you have guys that you talk to?
No, not at all. I never got into it. They never I think I don't know. I think a lot of the stuff that mediumship or psychics experiences is like whatever way it's going to work in your own mind, based on your belief system, based on your subconscious mind, who your teachers were, what books you've read, what's in that reservoir, so for me, it's just a receptacle. It's about being receptive. It's about being clear. It's about being, quite calm. And then the information comes. But I do use another process where I would invoke archetypes, a little bit like Kathy was saying they were doing for their group. Because that's a practice. That's how I got into the whole meditation thing, was a kind of what would you call it? Like my own self kind of discovery of synchrodestiny as a practice using these ancient sutras. And I kind of made it up as I went along, like based on a book that I found with all these sutras. I used to write them on big pieces of paper. I'd stand in them. This is before I was ever properly trained by anybody else, like made it up as I, DIY all the way. But I was just testing something. For me, I was like, this is this is baloney. And I was really skeptical. I thought, nah, this can't be it. And so I really played with it with no intention that it could even possibly work. But by Gara, it worked. And that was without having a formal meditation practice, without having a formal teacher. It was literally, I read a self-help book and I made it up practice. And one of the intents I set was to meet Dr. Deepak Chopra. And I think I started that in about September. And by the end of October, I was in California having a chat with him. So things really accelerated for me very quickly. Maybe they were going to accelerate anyway with or without that practice. Who knows, But it's something then that I wanted to know more of. Well, how does archetype kind of energy and information work? What is a sutra practice? I love the ancient Vedic sciences. That just always resonated with me. I felt like I got the guidebook or the handbook on how to show up in the world through those teachings. And that's what I always go back to. If I start to derail or lose it a little bit, it's a bit of Ayurveda, daily routine, meditation, get to bed. It's very simple. We are, how we function is very, very simple, but life isn't always kind of supporting that, in terms of, stress or responsibilities, just paying your bills, that's quite stressful. Like, so, the synchrodestiny part really, that's something I'm definitely going to do a bit more research on, I think, because I love it.
What are you calling it? I haven't heard you talk about that before.
Yeah.
Synchrodestiny?
Hang on, I got it. Oh, it's here. This is my most loved book. It's falling apart.
Oh, wow.
And it's Synchrodestiny. And literally at the back of this book, there are all these sutra statements that I just wrote down and started to repeat. And there's one for each day of the week. And so like Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Satchitananda, Shiva Shakti, Sankalpa, and I think that's all of them. If that was 7, I might have left one out. But they're them. And then they have these beautiful statements that go with them. And so what I feel happens is you get expanded beyond the confines of your conditioning and your limiting beliefs. And so you start to open up to something bigger than yourself. And then in that space, when you pop in an intent, like, okay, I got to meet this guy, Deepak, is he the real deal? Is he, I was really skeptical, like, and then when you find yourself standing there talking to me, you're going, shit, there's definitely something in this, you're kind of like, whoa. And there was just so many synchronicities that happened, as a result of that, my whole life trajectory changed. And I know you've both had similar scenarios, like, where your life just shifted gears. Do you think that when your life shifted gear, for example, Ramzi, because you're a recent one that we know of, is it because of an intention you set prior to that? Or is it because you opened up and evolved kind of your soul or your consciousness?
I personally believe it's because I opened up, because none of it was planned. None of these things were planned. They just happened, and they happened with a loud voice. Go there, do this. Like when I was in California, and I sent a message. Not I sent a message. I received a message, and it says, "Oh, it's time for us to meet." And I said, "Okay, fine. Then here are my availability. But just please note that I'm not in Montreal. I'm in California, so I'm a couple of hours away." And then within 5 minutes, she goes, "Oh my God, X would like to meet you. She's in California." I go, "Yeah, but California is big." "No, she's an hour away." So I never planned for that to happen, and I get to meet the other person, and the other person introduced me to 2 other people that is allowing me to go further with the changes that I'm working on. And guys, I'll talk about them later on in future episodes, what I'm doing. But it's amazing how when you are open, it just says it to you. It just things will happen. It literally conspires to give you the answers. It literally conspires. And I know sometimes, and a lot of us, we our mind is a tool that helps us a lot, but I also sometimes it just blocks us out of fear. I just want to preserve myself, so let me not do this because I have to pay my bills and so on and so forth. But if you listen to the voice of reason and say, thank you, I really appreciate that. Let me write it down over here so that I don't forget it. Then the mind will allow you to open up for something else that is in the works. Because when you're focused only on bills and what you need to do, you can see nothing else afterwards. Nothing else. So I like that. And also I wanted to mention something which was really interesting from the three of us, is that sometimes you don't speak to guides, Suzi and Kathy and I, we do that. But when we get together over here, something magical happens. And the magic in the gathering is whatever information that we are looking for individually get transmitted by the guides of others to us. I don't know, like finding the place in Devon when we did the event, for example. You got it, you're not sure. We sat together and I go, here it is. This is the picture of the place. You go, oh my God, here it is. And everything after that point was extremely, extremely easy. Do you recall?
Yeah.
Within 5 minutes, we got the place booked. Within 48 hours, we sold everything for the retreat. It was just like, oh, no, it's done. We don't have to do anything. I find that that allowingness makes things extremely, extremely simple and well aligned. So we don't have to just move into walls and open doors and trying to figure out where to go, but allowing that information to pass through.
That information kind of just pops in out of nowhere. Like it's a bit like Kathy's art, like you said, it just kind of floats in. And I remember when I was in India, what I felt was my last group in India, and like I had never even mentioned the word Bhutan. I didn't really even know where it was, or it's not like I'd studied it, or I knew nothing. And we were taking a group up to the foothills of the Himalayas, and I just said to I think the driver, if you went over that bridge now, where would you end up? Because we weren't going over the bridge. I was like, oh, we're not going over that bridge. Okay, we'll keep going on this road. And he was like, I was like, what's the next country if you go that direction? And he was like, Bhutan. And I was like, oh, and I didn't know the first thing about it. And then the next day, it was just still floating around in my awareness, Bhutan, Bhutan, Bhutan. But I was like, my left brain was like, no, we're done now in India. We're not coming back here. We're finished. That's the end of that. This was my 5th or 6th time being there. And I was like, no, I have to move on. And I happened to say to another one of the people that I did some work with, I said, yeah, I keep hearing Bhutan. I was like, what's that? Like, what's the story with the place? Or, I couldn't tell you what the population was, or, I had heard about their gross product is happiness. I had heard that, and I was intrigued by that. And honestly, that was November, and I got a call I think towards the end of January, saying there's an agent in Bhutan is inviting you. Do you have someone you'd like to bring? And I was like, what for? And with a view to bringing groups there. And I was like, I didn't ask. I genuinely didn't ask anybody, but I kind of opened to it. I think when it floated in, I opened, and I didn't kind of block it, because it seemed so random and so far-fetched. Like, come on, how's that going to work out? And then when I messaged a friend of mine who was, I think she was in America at the time, she told me that the day before she had been sitting in meditation, and she has guides, and she said, all right, guides, you know, I'd like to do more retreats and maybe a bit of travel. So if you could just fill that channel, that would be lovely. I didn't know, obviously. I hadn't been in touch with her for ages. And I messaged her the next day and I said, come here, do you want to come to Bhutan? Because I certainly didn't want to go on my own. And she was like, wow. And I remember at the time she was feeling a little kind of like, oh, am I crazy? You know, because she was in the middle of her own sort of life change stuff going on. And she was in Finland with a group of people searching for the Northern Lights. And she was, you know, little kind of jumpy, a little kind of, oh, am I really going to do this with Suzi? Like, because we didn't really even know each other that well, her and I. And anyway, she's in Finland. She's meditating that morning. She says, show me a sign, you know. And she's queuing up in the airport to get her boarding card or to check her bag or something. And there's a woman in front of her wearing a jacket, like a silk jacket with embroidery on the back. And the embroidery was a map of Bhutan. Okay.
Yeah.
She took a photograph and she sent it to me. She goes, I guess that's a sign. And I said, that's it. That's how it works. So I noticed in my 40s, I could follow those breadcrumbs with such ease, you know, because I was up for adventure and stuff, you know, and that's literally how we did it. Like when I look at the pictures and I'm like, oh my God, I trekked to the Tiger's Nest Monastery 4 times, you know, like that's an incredible gift of the universe. And I think the universe gifts us when we say yes, when we say yes to life, yes to the unknown, yes to, I have masses of potential that's untapped, you know, and trying to live in this, you know, maybe we're heading to 12D, but, you know, like 12D feels like a massive step from where I am right now. Like, but I think that's what the journey looks like in my experience, you know?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, let me just pull this out. That was my experience with Jyotis and yoga, Suzi. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful experience. Excited to follow your new podcast. Thank you so much. Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Back to our conversation. Events like this do happen all the time. See, when you open your mind, you allow for magic to happen and transformation to take place. So mind, magic, and alchemy. I love the title of our podcast for today. Quieting the mind is one of the most essential thing. And again, I don't like using quieting because your mind never quiets down. If you're like me, it just runs 24/7 on its own. And I have no control over it, but I just manage to disengage from the conversations as they evolve. So yeah, you want to talk about this, that's fine. You can talk on your own. I'll just focus on my meditative music. So yes, so it's very important for us to kind of allow a clarity to happen within our lives. And your story about that, there are tons and tons of stories that we can go in. Nobody knew that we were going to be in the UK last year, the three of us. Kathy didn't know that she's going to travel. I wasn't planning on going. Things happened along the way for it to materialize. And I love the synchronicity as it evolves. And I just don't want to go into something else, but it's just beautiful when you're just letting things go and not depending 100% because you still have to do the work, but allowing the information to come to so that it can guide you to the right way.
I think it's about where we put our attention. If I'm worrying about where my kid is or what's going to happen in politics, then I'm busy having those thoughts. But like you said earlier, Ramzi, my mind is not very chattery anymore because I think I've had so much fun over the past several years, you know, turning my attention to this, whatever, you know, the Rupert Sheldrake morphic realm, or, you know, the Akasha, where everything exists. I don't know what it is, but I'm starting to believe that that's what it is. It's where everything is. The, you know, my Suzi's next trips, my next images for my art, you know, the people that you're going to talk to, Ramzi, to heal your clients. It's about being, for me, if I can be curious about what I might hear, because I might hear something really interesting from a tree or from an ancestor, I would rather put my attention on that than worrying about bills, whatever it is, you know. And then I think there's an automatic quieting, calming, oh, what beautiful thing might I hear from my dog?
Yeah. Oh my God, dogs are amazing. They are amazing in passing on messages and telling you
Right?
where you like wake up.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you know, your blood pressure goes down, and now you're not as filled with anxiety anymore. I mean, it also is a healthy way to be in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask you guys about magic, you know, before we run out of time. I'm going to segue us into the final furlong, the last segment. Because the title for this week is Explore the Mind, Magic in Alchemy. What does magic mean to you? You know, what's magical? What's your experience of it? Do you create it? Does it just happen kind of randomly, or is it happening after the event? Is there an expectation before? I know I'm throwing a lot of ways of it, experiencing it to you, but
see, when you I think with my experience, when I quiet the mind and allow the information to come through, and a path is drawn, but it's not solid enough for it to break, but it's malleable enough for it to allow things to happen, that's where magic kicks in. My magic kicks in is when, oh yeah, you're moving from point A to point B. Here's point B. Oh, here it is. And that's where the magic is. If I want to put it in words, I really wanted to do a retreat. Always wanted to do a retreat. Don't know how to do it. You're good with the retreats. Suzi, can we do a retreat in England? Yeah, sure, we can do a retreat. We let it go, but we put it out there. I might not be able to go. I have this, I have that. All my obligation just dropped.
yeah.
And then we said, okay, can we firm it up? And it firmed up within half an hour. It's like we didn't do anything. It's just, you sent a text message, and it was firmed up. 24 hours later, it was sold out.
Mm-hmm.
2 months later, we were having that amazing retreat. It was beautiful weekend, amazing weekend. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, but like I suppose for me, see, it's like the intention was set. Like now, who's setting that intention? I don't even know. Yeah, you know, is it really a spark of inspiration coming into your, or are you foreseeing the future? You've already been down, you know, outside of time and space. It's something that's happened already, and you're tapping into it, because that's something that I've really started to play a little bit with too. Is magic when you go beyond space and time, and that experiences are not just linear anymore. Like it's like, is the future informing the present, or, you know, is your present moment informing your past? I've had experiences of both, where we worked a little bit of what I would consider actually magic. So, you know, I suppose magic is it's kind of a loaded word in a way, because it sets up a massive expectation, doesn't it?
It does, if you're looking for true magic. which is something out of nothing, and you're changing a physical item. So I'm here, I'm not there. But today, with what we know with spirituality and time travel that we do, which you've done meditation with time travel with us, and we just move into other spaces into the future, and we actually see what is happening in there. Our group was able to go to Devon and describe the house that we're going to be staying at. Like, amazing details. We've never been there, none of us. And all of a sudden, we got the list and we forgot about it because, see, our mind says things and then we let it go. But you managed to record it.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, that was amazing. After we finished the weekend, we were driving back and you go, let me play this. And somebody mentions there's a fountain. Yes, there was a fountain on the grounds. Nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
The wood panels, the stove, the kitchen, it was just like amazing. The doors, they were describing the entrance door exactly as it was. So yes, we do travel and we bring magic with us. We bring magic with us from the future, and nothing is linear. It's all in a single point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And one more thing before I forget, because I remembered and I forgot 5 times. You said it's a DIY, what do you call it? Sutras that you created.
Yeah.
Which reminded me of Ram Dass. In one of his talks, he goes, Ram is the name of God. So if you repeat Ram, Ram, Ram multiple times, you get enlightened. You repeat it over a number of days, blah, blah, blah. And there was a guy that was mixed up the words and it turned into a devil, or Mar, he called it, which is not Ram, but Mar, which is a devil or not God. And he repeated that multiple times over and over again, and he got enlightened. So your new sutra that you create is for you. It comes for you, and then you repeat it, and then it opens up a new channel for you. Sorry, I had to say that, but I forgot it. I keep on forgetting, and we were interrupting. So go ahead.
I want to talk about magic. For me, it's when this work that we do has sort of proof that it's real. One of my favorite things is feeling connected to other people, and the 3 of us were in a situation last year at some point where, Ramzi, you traveled to Switzerland. I couldn't sleep and turned on a show about CERN. You sent pictures of being in CERN that morning. Suzi was doing some work with Einstein. Like it was like 3 days or 4 days where we were just like constantly overlapping, and it was so interesting. Or as simple as a situation as, I'll go to my computer and I'll text my mom who lives 14 hours away, and I'll push send and her text will come to me. Like that moment, and we're both checking in with each other. That to me is magic, because now I know me and my mom were thinking about each other. Ramzi was traveling. I mean, we've done that multiple times where we're on trips and we've had those overlaps. That's magic to me, and it's real. These things, they happen, but you have to pay attention, and then you have to also say it.
I think you have to acknowledge it. I think that was a big turning point for me. Early on, it was like, oh my God, it feels like I'm making this up as I go along. Oh my God, I'm not going to say this to anybody. They'll think I'm mad, or, Jesus, like you're freaking out, like, because you're having this kind of expanded experience. So when you start to expand and you start to have this kind of, what we would call like a higher state of consciousness, you feel like you're the only one having it, but what's amazing then is when you kind of stick with it and you don't overthink it and just allow it to be there without putting those labels. I think labeling things can really injure us, and it can really limit us, inhibit us and stuff like that. Sometimes labels are there to kind of keep us safe, don't drink the bleach. But ultimately, like trying not to label things or because of the limitations. And so that opportunity of that opening that's starting to happen. And like you said, going into that flow, like that really is when it's more than you having the experience. Now you're sharing it with, you two guys, or within a collective of a group of people that we're working with directly, or in a retreat setting as well. It happens, something very coherent begins to happen with a group. And there's this incredible sort of like a synergy. I remember we had a retreat in England a couple of years ago with a group who had been working on Janet's group for a year. So we knew each other online quite well, but, it was our first time meeting in the physical. And one lady and I don't want to name her, but, you know her. I was literally having a thought and she was expressing it, or she would say something that I was about to say. Like, it was just phenomenal. And I had so many kind of precognitive kind of glimpses when we were walking around that land with that group. And something that struck me, I don't know why it came into my head the other day, but I remembered like a year or two, whenever, about a good 6 months to a year before that happened, when we were in the planning stages of that online program, I had a vision. I saw a group of women wearing white on this land. It was a beautiful sunny day. We were kind of joyful, laughter, singing. And I remember saying it when we were having the kind of the planning meetings. I was like, I keep seeing these women and they're dressed in white, and and I was sure it was going to be in Ireland. I don't know why I thought that. Like, I just made the assumption it was Ireland. But it's only then after an event sometimes that you can kind of pin it all together. Like, when you're in it, you don't often know. You kind of have to sit back and go, oh yeah, that, and then that link to that, and that person, and then that time. And so you realize that it's a stream. Like, it's a continuous stream. It's not stopping now. Didn't stop back that day, and it didn't just begin the day we were having that planning meeting. It was like almost fate brought us all together, so that's kind of, for me, that's magic. That's actually magic.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I get that. Love the synchronicity between you all beautifuls, Michelle. Yes, and that's been happening even outside the podcast and the works that we've done. We sat in places and all of a sudden, oh, I think Kathy's not feeling good. I am here if you need to talk. And then she needed to talk. And
Ramzi got a hit about my son. And he was so touched because you said, write and tell him this.
Oh,
and
okay.
He was stunned and grateful because he was having a hard moment.
So just bring it all down, and magic does happen.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
We're coming almost to the end of our program.
We haven't done our toast.
Oh,
that's why I was going to say that. So we have brought in our toast. I hope everybody has something with them to toast with us. Cheers to In12d.
In12d.
Our new beginning, and more to come. Here.
To In12d and to the dream team of DIYers. Jesus. Isn't a professional amongst us.
And that would be me.
I know. That was lovely.
So I've got to put her aside for now. So yeah, we're coming to the end of it. Next week we have
special guest.
You go ahead.
Very
Suzi.
special.
Oh, dear friend of mine. I love her. Oh my God, she's an amazing woman. Very synchronous how I met her as well, from the UK. Sue Cooper. She's a phenomenal human, and she's doing a lot of work on humaning well together at the moment as part of a Feast for the Soul, which we've been working together on. So she's agreed to be our guest for season 2, episode 2 of In12d. So it's a beautiful guest to have, and she's really interested in building compassionate communities, and what she's passionate about, bringing groups of people together, not just online but also in person, where she's based in Nottingham, and she's involved in Living Cities Earth and a few other big groups. So she's lots of interesting things to share with us. So the importance of community, I think, will be the theme for next week for sure with Sue.
Definitely looking forward to that. And on this note, we thank you all for being with us. Everyone who's been on the call, who joined in with their comments and questions. Thank you all for being part of today's journey. And we'll see you next week, next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, and 11 p.m. Pacific Standard. Till next week.